this section of the learner journey, so we're looking at the skills assessment, formerly known as, or sometimes still known as, diagnostics. Initial target setting, formative assessment, target review, more formative assessment, because obviously it can happen more than once. So these are the areas that we're going to take a look at on the next selection of slides. So the documentation, that we need to be seeing on Canvas to support and evidence the delivery of the learner journey. So these are all the templates that come up in your blueprints that need to be completed. So we've got the CIF, the group profile, which obviously once you've done those diagnostics, forgive me, I'm probably going to refer to it as diagnostics, even though it's skills assessment, but you know what I mean. So once you've done that, you can start to populate your group profile, scheme of learning, and your course outline. And we've put this in red because, oh, Annabelle, it's not working. Where's the click? It's not whizzing. Oh, we had it. Well, you'll just have to imagine it, but that wonderful red oval shape did a nice sort of spin to make you aware that these documents really do need to be uploaded to Canvas, because when it comes to IQA and EQA and audit purposes, we need to see those. So we'll have a look at them. Not working at all there. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay, and we have spoken about sharing schemes of learning briefly earlier this morning, and as we mentioned, I am getting some examples sent through to me now of schemes of learning that we're going to start looking through them all. We're looking for volunteers to help us with this project. It's probably going to be the next project that we start to look at after we've come to the end of this big EME conference day. So any examples that you have, or if anybody wants to sort of be involved in that, I believe there is some development time available for that. Drop me an email or drop Annabelle an email. If you want to send any examples to me, I will put them with the collection I'm already building up. So we want to have a think about the learning records. There's two parts: the skills assessment, target setting and review. So we need to look at the documentation to support and evidence that. So really this slide is just a visual on how you're measuring the distance traveled on that. This is the learning record, or you might know it as the RLP. Think about planning and how you're going to really measure that. So it's essential, again, we've got it in red again, essential these documents are completed and uploaded to Canvas. I don't think this one spins, unfortunately, but it's in red, so I think the message is clear there. Okay. So in terms of a completed learner record for each learner, just some reasons why, what's the purpose? So I think it's quite clear that it engages your learners in their own learning. It's the opportunity to feedback at key points. It provides that evidence of achievement and it monitors progress. And of course, it does help you to get to know your learner and their individual needs and goals. So I have, oh, did you have something? Yes, sure. That's okay. We have a,
sorry, I just wanted to add to this in terms of the learner record. So as Jess was saying, obviously skills assessment and the target setting and review, because of the work that's going on around digital transformation, target setting and review will come off of Canvas and will sit within the new system. And we're just waiting to see what that will look like. So that will slightly alter, and obviously when we know more, we can then update this information and send it out to you so that people are clear about it.
Yeah, so we're not 100% sure what it's going to look like yet, are we? So Okay, I will move on to the next slide. Skills assessment. Obviously, it has to be done early in the course, the first few weeks of the course. I was saying before, if you think you might be changing those learning aims as well, that is going to be key. You need to do that assessment or diagnostic. It helps to determine what the learner can do and where they need to develop. And obviously, it's going to provide your initial target settings and help you to plan for that course. It's not in a red shining spinning circle, but it is a funding requirement for all the EME provision that these are conducted and recorded. So all elements of that can be found in your Canvas blueprint. And similarly for target setting and review. So meeting with learners in the tutorials, need to review the skills, see if those initial targets have been met, and review them. Within 6 weeks, assessment tasks need to be designed to check they've been achieved, and we need to be seeing those, we need evidence of those. Feedback on the progress can be given to the learner, and just developing a learner journey and evidencing their progress and developing your relationship with them. It's a funding requirement for all EME provision. I feel a bit like an air hostess saying that. It is essential. Target setting and review is conducted and recorded to the centre. Right, so next slide. We have, I'm going to have, oh, it's yours, and hand you back to Annabelle for the rather more colourful slide.
You can see that Lorraine's got her hand up.
Yeah, it's just
Lorraine.
we always refer to things within 3 weeks of the course or within 6 weeks of the course, but some people will run a course 1 day a week. I run mine, a lot of them, 4 days a week. By week 3, that course is finished because of the amount of guided learning. So it might be better to put it within sessions.
Sessions, okay.
I just think because everyone has such a different model.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know Jess has asked in terms of the call for content and support around schemes of learning. I know if Jill Futcher is still on this call, we've had conversations in the past around the skills assessments, the diagnostics, the skills assessments. Basically for English and maths, not for ESOL, we've been using mock papers really, and we could be doing so much more than just using mock papers. So if anyone's wanting to get involved in that piece of work, again, please just send Jess an email, and we're going to start sort of pulling some of this stuff together. So just a little reminder around that. Thank you. So sort of moving on with the paperwork, documentation side of things in terms of how that's supporting the learner journey. Just wanted to look at these 4 areas in green. We're going to cover all of the areas, but the ones in red are in step 3, which is all around achievement. So we're going to look at talk about sampling, standardization, mocks, and learner registration. Now, some of this is going to be very skewed towards accreditation. So obviously be thinking as well about non-accredited. So let's start then with the IQA activity around sampling. So IQAs have a role to play throughout the course, pre-course and during the course and after the course. So we've got this little table that some of you, certainly IQAs, should be familiar with because it's within the WEA's IQA guidance. We will send this out with the conference slides as well to make sure that everyone's got sight of that. But within this guidance, it basically breaks down the role of the IQA before the course, during and after. So we're going to focus on during, as we're talking about delivery, because we've already talked about some of the things pre-course, and many of you have fed back that actually the IQAs aren't always involved at that point and need to be. So I'm going to go with the fact that we know that that needs to be in place and focus here. So during the course, we're asking the IQA to sample and to basically say, yeah, what I'm seeing is good and it's going along the right lines, and to provide feedback. So they can sample throughout the course. Importantly, they're doing that to make sure that people are ready for the final assessment and to make sure that people are progressing. So IQAs can be giving some input and some feedback on mocks and sampling those and seeing what's going on. There's an IQA activity workbook, as it's called, which kind of sounds like the sort of thing you'd give to small children, the activity workbook to go through. It's basically an Excel workbook. So within that, there's a guidance tab, and it takes you through how to use that form to conduct your sampling and to do your final report, which obviously comes at this point. It also gives a lot of information about the RAG rating system. So that helps you to determine as an IQA the volume of activity that's needed and what you're going to need to do. So that's all detailed there. This workbook needs to be completed throughout the course, and a record of that should be kept on Canvas alongside any one-to-one meetings that IQAs are having with tutors to talk about any aspects of the EME qualification. Use the qualification meeting record. There's a template of that on each and every Canvas course. It goes back to what I was saying before lunch, where you've got your different options for your Canvas courses. Make sure you're selecting the right one, then you will have the documentation you need. What tends to happen is, if things aren't being set up as they need to be, you're then already sort of on the back foot, as it were, because you haven't got the documentation that you need to do the job. Another red circle here, it's essential that the IQA evidence is completed and uploaded. It's absolutely vital for EQA purposes and for audit purposes. You know, we won't get through our City and Guilds audits and EQA visits without this information. And increasingly, we need to make sure that we are showing that sampling is being conducted throughout the life of the course, not just at the end of the course. So linking that then to standardisation, just some facts, I suppose, about standardisation. You'll have heard me, many of you before, say that standardisation needs to happen in region. It's there as a means of ensuring that assessment standards are being consistently met. Many of you made reference to it before lunch, and we were talking about how within that standardisation meeting, you can also talk about the different roles, the roles of the interlocutor, for example. It's really, really important that regional IQAs are organising and delivering standardisation events, and the quality improvement and assurance leads will be supporting where we're able with this, and sort of monitoring what's going on with this to make sure that these are in place and they're taking place. All tutors, and I'm really stressing this, all tutors teaching on accredited courses must attend standardisation. It is a requirement of City and Guilds. It's not something that I've made up or Jess has made up. It is a requirement. If we can't prove that our tutors are attending that, then we've got problems. If Rachel is still on the call, it would be great to get Rachel to say something in just a moment. Sorry, Rachel, I'm putting you on the spot. because Rachel has developed a really good resource that we are looking to then roll out. That is a means of doing some online standardisation. Just before I pull Rachel into that though, just a couple of other points then around making sure that standardisation is an opportunity to basically pick assessment activities, tasks that then they're being marked by all the tutors, the results are being compared, and they're being discussed collectively. The whole point of this is that tutors get the opportunity to talk to each other about how they go about assessing. It's all, you know, safe, non-judgmental, etc. And ultimately, you're ensuring then that the standards are being adhered to. Everyone is comfortable with how they're going about marking something and making sure they're meeting the qualification requirements. And final point before I just bring Rachel in, if that's all right, it's really important to make sure that when you're conducting standardisation, that you're ensuring that there's a variety of modes. So say, for example, for ESOL, speaking and listening standardisation, reading and standardisation, etc. But obviously that reflects the provision that's being that you're offering. So if you're offering only ESOL, speaking and listening, there's no point in doing a reading standardisation. You obviously focus on the speaking and listening standardisation. Just going to pause for a second. Rachel, could you just share quickly, verbally with colleagues what you've worked on in terms of standardisation?
So our region experiences the same issues, which I think are universal. Trying to run standardisations for the whole range of provision that we run, which in our region is all entry-level modes, including some of the higher level functional skills as well. So there's a lot of individual standardisations compounded by tutors' varied availability. So trying to find something that captures the need for compliance, but works around tutors' availability and offers them one-to-one feedback on what they're getting right and what they're getting wrong. Came up with a model of self-study in Canvas. So basically, there's a course set up in Canvas which contains standardisation materials, typically exemplar papers with mark schemes and opportunities for tutors to engage with that either by online discussion or assignment, posting their answers and then getting feedback either one-to-one by myself or gathered up as a follow-up Zoom where we go through it as a group. And that's really just the best way we've found to try and capture tutors who need that standardisation. I wouldn't say that it's completely perfect, but it is a really useful model to fit with the whole range of standardisation that we can offer. So it is definitely plugging a gap. It can be compounded by the lack of mock exemplar material, both by the exam board and internally. So I'm forever on the sweep of different regions for more mock material and gathering it as we conduct mocks ourselves. So definitely a work in progress, but I think it has a valuable contribution to make.
Thank you, Rachel. So we're working with Rachel we need to pick up with you again, Rachel, how we try and get that out to everybody so that everyone can start to use that as well. But it is reliant, like all these things, on people sharing what they've got. So if people have got things that could contribute to this, please let Rachel know, and then myself and Jess will be picking that up with Rachel. Thank you. Back to just sharing screen. Oops, something strange is going on. Hold on. Okay. So just a final little note around standardisation before I hand back to Jess. So the IQA reports will report any actions from standardisation using the qualification meeting record. It's one template that can be used for one-to-ones, it can be used for standardisation, it can be used for small group conversations that the IQA has with assessors. These documents are uploaded or should be uploaded onto Canvas, and then obviously the regional quality leads can link with relevant managers if there are particular actions that need to be progressed, and they can sort of have sight of those. As well as your regional standardisation, we are organising national standardisation events, which is where we will invite EME IQAs to come and basically look at how their process is working in terms of giving feedback, etc. These are going to be part of what Jodie, who's my boss, is talking as subject deep dives. This is where we look in detail, different subjects, different curriculum areas. Now you'll see that there is one scheduled for next week for English. That's what was in the schedule. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be happening, but I will be getting in touch with people, obviously after this conference, to start looking at how we have that national standardisation. You've got one there for ESOL and one for maths as well. And then my final point, other than the nice red bit, which is the essential part, is that obviously there's not a requirement from any awarding body for us to do this for non-accredited, but I would highly recommend that you include standardisation within your RAPA process, because it is about making sure that anything that you are doing by way of assessment is at an appropriate level and is preparing learners for progression. So that's just a recommendation really with that. I am going to hand back over to Jess, who is almost ready. So Jess is going to carry on with delivery, talking about formative assessment. Oops. Right, okay, we have another breakout room coming up. We did spoil you. Right, so formative assessment. So we're talking about regular checks of learning, whatever way you might choose to do that. Linked to the course, final assessment, helping learners to monitor their progress and development, helps inform target settings and review, supports tutor planning. So all the reasons why we might do it. There's many ways you can conduct formative assessment within your planning. So what we'd like you to do in those same 7 breakout rooms, and we've got the same facilitators, or I might have had to move a few people around us because people have dropped out and come back in. I had to reassign them and I didn't know who was in which room. But in your breakout room, if you could discuss the methods of formative assessment you currently use and how these might be recorded, how they are currently recorded, or how you could get around some of the difficulties of recording things within Canvas. If you could have a think, please, both about accredited and non-accredited courses. And once again, we're going to ask those facilitators, can't speak. I'll put some spokespeople present who will help to manage the time. So just as you did before, if you could just keep a check on what's being said so we can have a feedback. So think about the things that you do and share your ideas. And hopefully we'll pick up some new innovative ideas for formative assessment as the courses go on. So I think I have assigned everybody now to the rooms, although I can hear people coming in still. So I'm going to open the rooms. If anybody has not been assigned to a room, I will be continuing one shortly. Okay, so we've got Rachel, of course, as room leaders. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to share that screen again. Yes, because it keeps going. A complicated way of doing it. Okay, so in your breakout rooms, you were discussing formative assessment. So what I think we'll do is we'll visit each group again for your feedback, and we'll split it if we can into the non-accredited and accredited. So I'm going to go again to Amanda first of all.
Okay.
Amanda, hiya.
Yes.
So do you want to let us know what you were talking about?
Okay, so I've just got it listed here in bullet points. Methods of formative assessment, what we use. We use Canvas quizzes, assignments, worksheets, homework. We use Word documents so that learners can access them when they don't have to print them off. They're on Canvas and they can be practice papers. We do an exam online so they can practice with technology. We upskill the students. SLC audio recording is quick and easy to use and then can be put straight into Canvas. They record on the phone, Zoom chat and other functions to support with feedback. How can they be recorded within Canvas? They upload a quiz results. Accredited courses, they use practice papers, assignments, everything is on Canvas. Non-accredited, hard copy of SLR on Canvas. Issues and concerns sometimes when there's no Wi-Fi, so Canvas can be an issue. I think that's more on the face-to-face delivery. Creative courses, they take pictures of and upload it. There has been something where they've screenshot on Facebook, they've sent the work to the tutor to show progression, and the tutor's uploaded it onto Canvas. They're using work phones for SLC. We did have a bit of a discussion and recommended the use of digital dictaphones possible. And it was identified that some staff will need work phones as they're using their own phones for some of the things.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so some quite creative ways of recording and uploading there. That's good. Thank you, Amanda. Can we move on to Lorraine, please?
Yeah, we've got a lot of similar stuff, which you probably
that's fine. Yes.
Things like quiz, Q&A, group discussions, using critical ear, brainstorming, and taking pictures of that and uploading. So if it's in a classroom setting and they've written loads of stuff on a flip chart as a group, actually labelling that and photographing it. Really, any task that's completed in the session would be formatively assessed. Whether that's a comprehension, we could do audio recordings, warm-up tasks, spelling test, gap fills. But we need to pick things that also evidence the targets. And we did have a discussion about the best way of evidencing and labelling those targets so that when a moderator comes to check, they can find them easily enough. And we did decide that using the rubrics, if they're doing the skills check on the rubrics, then that generates the learning outcomes, and then we can match that stuff across, and it makes it a bit easier.
Okay,
The formative assessments need to inform the target review sheets. We did talk about that as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lorraine. Thank you. Jackie, did your group have anything in addition? I'm assuming there's a lot of similar stuff.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of similar things. We were talking about saving space. So we know that space is at a premium on Canvas. So maybe, just adding links in or uploading audio because it takes up less space. Looking at discussions on Canvas. So hosting them in a variety of ways, whether it's audio, whether it's text, whether it's a video file, linking it that way. What else do we have? I'm just trying to not repeat anything. The likes of Kahoots and Mentimeters, and recording them as means of formative. Looking at case studies, the annotation tools as well. So you can use that for your peer assessment. Students' annotations again, so where they can go through and if a tutor is to upload a file that they can tear that file to bits. So if they're looking at scanning and skimming and all them kind of things. Role plays, so to make it nice and relational, especially for ESOL learners who might not be as confident.
Yeah.
Closed captions and poll and whiteboard in Zoom. Looking at the questioning techniques as well, so ensuring that the feedback, even if it's verbal, is developmental. We know that it's an Ofsted requirement, but it should be there as good practice anyway. The use of filters, so like animals, colours, animation, things like that, and also photographs, ensuring that they're labelled as well.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we were definitely going to be collating all this. We might have to. We need to put an information sheet out on this. Is good, some good practice. Thanks, Jackie. Rachel, anything extra?
I think we reflected the same range of assessment methods, but a distinction made seemingly obviously between the lower levels of students where it's more problematic to rely on students to be able to upload evidence to Canvas, their digital skills, their access isn't the same. So things like online discussions, assignments would typically be set for learners who are higher level. So a bit of a distinction there, but the range of assessment really being contingent on a number of things. Confidence using Canvas, not just among students, but staff themselves. Keep coming back to it really. Also confusion about just what range of assessment methods were needed to evidence achievement. And there's some quite worrying variations in what tutors have been told they need to evidence. I'm not sure that needs to be addressed right now here, but the volume of assessment taking place and the guidance being given to tutors varies quite widely. So some concern around that. And just thinking about how we could extend the variety of assessment. Zoom recordings would be a boon so that tutors are not spending so long scanning, uploading evidence, because that's really impinging on their time and a real issue, an ongoing issue for tutors.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Do we want to pick up on some of those issues?
Sorry. I think the storage issues we need to pick up on. I think the volume that's being asked for as well. I've already kind of made a little note to have some conversations with the quality leads in terms of in their specific regions where there's been really good practice around formative assessment that we might sort of showcase. So I think there's a number of things that we can do with all of this feedback. That's great. Thank you.
Can I just add one specific thing, Annabelle?
Yeah.
One of the comments was somebody had been given the guidance that they should produce 10 pieces in total of evidence for RAPA. So that was 5 formative assessment pieces and 5 summative assessment pieces, and that was for each learning outcome. So the concern is that there's huge variation in what people feel they're having to provide.
Okay. I won't comment on that specifically, but
I think that's come from quite high up. Yeah, I think that's coming from quite high up.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll get some clarity on that. So thank you very much. Let's call Martin, please.
Jess, I don't think we can hear you very well.
Can you?
That's better.
You'll see my wrinkles if I get any closer. Martin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Not massively dissimilar, to be honest with you. We talked about the use of Canvas Gradebook and providing feedback through various things that learners put on Canvas, quizzes, writing assignments, that kind of thing. Across the team, there was some people, it ranges, some provide just 1 mock exam up to 3 mock exams in preparation for the final assessment and to set targets off the back of those. Spelling, punctuation and grammar is checked and the tutor makes comments on those whether the learner's improved, although that's not always evident on Canvas. So if we've given them previous feedback, we sometimes go back and check on a future piece of work if they've taken on board the previous feedback. So if that was around capital letters, for example, we talked about, are we going back in future and kind of seeing a difference and commenting on that difference as well. What else did we talk about? We talked about particularly actually lower level courses and in face-to-face classes, ways that we're gathering evidence is through scanning worksheets and uploading them to Canvas. And there's a suggestion that batch scanning is quicker for tutors, but a lot longer-winded for anyone wanting to audit it. So there was an acknowledgement there as well. I questioned to see how we were preparing learners for speaking and listening as well, because I'm aware that it's quite easy to do it otherwise in terms of written work. And yeah, learners get the opportunity to have sort of 5 to 10 minute talks within sessions most weeks. And again, we provide feedback on that, but it's not always either written down or recorded and uploaded to Canvas, though we do know that there is opportunity to record verbal feedback and upload that to Canvas, but that might be a storage issue on Canvas itself as well.
Yeah, there is a storage on Canvas issue, isn't there? I don't know if are we allowed to have a YouTube channel within the. That might be. Yeah, we should look at sort of maybe alternatives to storing within Canvas. That's something else to follow up on. Think another day. Thank you, Martin. Thanks very much for that. We have Group 6 next, so that's Sarona, please.
Hi, yes, so we had a similar but equally extensive list, and we had a discussion on how the methodology for assessments have evolved, especially with digitalisation as well. So our list was the worksheets, discussions can be uploaded onto Canvas or recorded, quiz, Q&A, multiple choice Q&As and gap fills, a variety of different ways you can do quizzes. Also using the online tools available on Zoom, assessments, and we discussed how often the assessment should be taking place. So maybe at the end of each topic or at the beginning of a new session, and at the end to see the distance travelled. Presentations, these could be done individually or in small groups. Yeah. Thumbs up and thumbs down for lower level learners, easy way to see if they have understood or not. Round robin, post-its, photo evidence, observation, witness statements, exit tickets, recapping. And also not everything has to be uploaded to Canvas. Sometimes you can just evidence it in your scheme of learning. You know, the type of formative assessment that was carried out. Mini whiteboards are very effective, especially if you're teaching in a community centre and don't have access to tech. Polls on Zoom, homework, peer assessing, grouping particularly same ability learners together so they can stretch and challenge each other. Self-assessment is another really good way of assessing, because it promotes higher order thinking skills. Research, video evidence, tests, mock exams, repetition, recap, competition, entering them for national competitions. Adult learners love competitions, so you know, getting them really excited about maybe entering a national one. Debates, quite an yes.
Absolutely. I hope one of you had enough paper to record all of that. That's great. It's a really good list. I mean, I think between these groups we're getting loads of really good ideas, so we need to look at a way of compiling all that and sharing it and showcasing it, I think. So thank you, Sarona. We have final room, Athena.
Lots of similarities, but what I can reinforce is the numbers of formative assessments being conducted can depend on the guided learning hours of courses, but generally between 2 and 3 formative assessments on each course we can expect. We don't need to have so many pages of formative assessments, but what we need to be careful about is the fact that our formative assessments can reflect the 5 learning outcomes of the course recorded on the course information sheet, and also the individualized targets recorded on the target setting and review sheets. And when formative assessments are marked, the points where learners lose marks or the skills for which they couldn't answer the questions should be transferred into target setting and review sheets as their individualized targets with a set date, so that by the end of the course, tutors can assess the same skills so they can assess the same skills by the end of the course. And when learners can demonstrate their knowledge on those skills by the end of the course, that can show how much they have progressed during their courses. So there are different ways that the tutors with whom I spoke, they prepared formative assessments. So some of them are using City and Guilds sample exam papers. Okay. Some create their own formative assessments, but they are aware of the fact that they must reflect the learning outcomes of the course. And most of the tutors, especially with entry-level learners, same challenges. Learners email them their work, then they change the format into PDF, mark their work and save them on Canvas, which I appreciate their hard work, but it can be time consuming.
Okay. Thank you, Athena. That's really good. Thank you very much. I'm just I'm slightly mindful of time, so I'm just going to move on to the next course. There's some really good examples there, some really good practice. Yeah, your mouse is not behaving. Disappeared. Okay. Oh, right. So just this is for information purposes, really. If you're trying to find those sample papers, I do get quite a few requests for the passwords. So when you get this pack, you'll have the passwords. Just be mindful that they do sometimes change, or they change from time to time. So if it doesn't work, do let me know and we'll get the most up-to-date one. If those of you who have access to City and Guilds walled garden, some of you do, some of you don't, the passwords can actually be found on there, but that's just for reference, really. And we're asking at least one mock exam sample papers for our own accredited course. Next slide, please. The memory elephant here, just to remember for mocks, conduct mocks in the same way that you would for the final assessment, ensuring that you have the same candidate pack and the same assessment pack that you would have in the real exam. And in terms of scheduling your mock, the general rule of thumb is just after halfway through your course, you need to be able to pick up potential issues for learners, and also gives you an idea of how that final exam is going to run. So it's not only practice for the learners in terms of what to expect and to identify any potential problems, but it's also to help you get your head straight about how that final exam is going to be conducted and any potential issues that might arise. So if we can have the EAF slide. So I'm going to hand over to Ruth. I am a bit mindful of I'm eating into your break time a little bit, but if I can just mention that EME accreditation form, often referred to as the EAF, this is that form where you initially register your learners. It does go backwards and forwards between tutor, course organizer, and the accreditation team, but the first part of that EAF must be completed by the course organizer, and then there's a section for the tutor to complete, and the EAF, it must be submitted to the accreditation team after the mock and between 20 to 30 days before the assessment date is planned. So with that brief overview, I'm going to hand you over to Ruth.
Thank you. Ruth, if you want to add anything to any of that. I think the big thing to remember is in red on that slide, which is really making sure that you, and it goes back to stage one, step one, planning and preparation. So think about how you are going to assess and what you are assessing before you even contemplate filling in the form, because what tends to happen and causes a lot of frustration for everyone involved is that the forms go back and forth because decisions haven't always been made or thought through. So if you can get all of that information prior to completing the form and then send it through, that's going to make life a lot easier. And Ruth and the team have worked really hard at trying to give you everything that you need to know within that form. We're having to operate so manually at the moment because we don't have a system in place where we can just at the click of a button say we want to register this learner and it goes to the awarding body. So there's a lot of manual work that goes on with spreadsheets, hence the EAF. So please just be mindful of that. And also, I guess the other thing, and then I will shut up, is to just be aware that with the new system coming in, we assume that the EAF will disappear and there will be a more automated means of doing this. But at the moment, that's what we've got. So, Ruth, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I just want to stress what you said about making sure that all the information is on that EAF before it's submitted. I've had a few instances this week where students, for various reasons, we've got spelling discrepancies with the names. We've got students that have been down to do a test on a certain day on a certain time. Those tests have been booked, and then the learner says that they can't do it on that time, on that date. So we've got to go in and cancel them and reschedule them. That takes 48 hours at the very least. This is a sort of thing that if that EAF isn't fully completed with absolutely everything we need, it can cause major problems, and some of the problems can't be undone. If we order you an externally marked test from City and Guilds, and then you decide you want to change the date, that can't be done. So it is really, it's what Annabelle says, it's plan, 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 and be absolutely certain that absolutely every bit of information on that EAF is correct, down to the spelling of the student's name. Yeah. Because again, once a student is registered, should that discrepancy not be highlighted until the student gets their certificate, then there can be a cost involved, and certainly an awful lot of time involved, including we need evidence from a student before we can even make an amendment. So it's this thing, and I know it's time consuming and it can be quite irritating, but it really does impact on my team's work and the workloads. Yeah. I seem to have spent this week sorting problems out. And it's not always anybody's fault. I'm not blaming anybody, but some of these errors probably could have been sorted before the EAF was submitted. Yeah. So if there's a cell in green, 99% of the time we need that information putting in that green cell. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. So please do read the guidance that's on there. And please do be, as we say, mindful of that. It goes back to what we've just been talking about with planning. And in terms of what we're going to do next after the break, where we talk about achievement, we're going to pick up on some of this again, and we're going to have another quiz around the models of assessment and the sort of modes of assessment. So we will all things